Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing another seasonal color analysis makeup tutorial, and today's focus is bright or clear spring. If you would like to be part of the voting for the next season, make sure you head over to the community tab and vote for the look that you would like to see created. Let's get right into creating this clear or bright spring makeup tutorial. So to get started with the bright or clear spring makeup look, I've already done my complexion. My skin tone tends to be quite cool or pink in undertone, so it took me a little bit of finessing to make my skin tone warmer to go with the season. What I ended up using was the IT Cosmetics Your Skin But Better CC Plus Nude Glow in the shade Fair Beige. Now this is supposed to be a cool pink undertone, but it still runs really yellow, so I ended up having to mix it with little bits of the LA Girl Pro Color Foundation Mixing Pigment in blue, as well as a tiny drop of white. Doing that has made me a lot more kind of yellow than my body skin, but we will even this all out. With bright or clear spring having a neutral warm undertone, I'm going to start by using a little bit of bronzer to warm my skin tone up. The bronzer I'm going to be using is by NARS. This is the matte bronzer in the shade Velarda. A warm bronzer, so meaning it has a higher concentration of golden undertones, but it's a little bit more neutral. So I would think of it more as a bronzer with a golden pink undertone, which means it's going to work a little bit better for my skin tone. For my eyes, I'm going to start by applying an eye base, Bare Minerals Concealer in the shade Bisque. This is a powder concealer, and it has a little bit of a salmon pink undertone. I'm going to use this as a base to neutralize my eyelid, and this is going to help the shadows we apply on top shine through. BK Beauty number 106. This is a brush that is marketed towards liquid concealer, but I like using it with powder concealer and powder shadows that you want to use as an all-over base. You do need to agitate it slightly just to kind of warm it up and make it melt into a cream base. The look we're creating today is going to be a little bit more of a smoky eye with a pop of color on the lips. And this look was inspired by a picture I posted of Emma Stone in a poll that I put up on my YouTube community page. My little YouTube community was able to vote on this poll, and they chose this look of the 4 options I gave them. When I was putting together the look, I pulled some shadows from my large Sydney Grace palette. The first shade I'm going to be using is a matte called Iced Mocha, and this is going to be a neutral leaning warm mid-tone brown. And I'm going to start with a BK Beauty a 502. I want to start building in my socket line, and for this smoky effect I want to use a technique that is newer to me, and it's very much something that's borrowed from Eastern Beauty, and this is the inverted triangle eyeshadow placement. For my socket line, I want to draw my socket from the inner corner of my eyebrow straight across to the tail of my eyebrow. So this is going to be the flat base for the inverted triangle. I'm taking a little bit more of that shadow. I'm going to go right under my eye. So right under where the puffy, fatty part of my eye is, right here at that lowest point, I'm going to take that mid-tone shadow. And then I can use the residual on my brush just to create the line. Now the line, it's not going to be a perfectly straight line because we are going to be going through the eye. So you're going to have to draw down, skip over your eye, and connect. Same thing on the inner corner. We're going to draw down. We're having this definition and this shading, but it's not going to close off the eye. So with our high contrast eye look to keep in part with the bright spring season, we're gonna have darkness right through this triangular section. But the inside, we are gonna really brighten up and pop it with a little bit of a bright shimmery colors. You can follow what I'm doing, which is that inverted triangle method, or you can go with a round eye look, or you can go with more of your classic outer corner, kind of more smoky cat eye effect. I like having fun with different placements, and I just feel like it keeps makeup fun. I want to build up and create a little bit more contrast. I want to go a shade darker to really bump up my level of contrast. So I'm going to use the color Dark Chocolate from Sydney Grace, and I'm going to go to a slightly smaller brush. This is the BK Beauty A504. And with this, I just want to get a little bit of shadow right on the point of the brush. And I'm going to use very small motion to go along that flat edge. And I want to deepen that contrast. Is I'm really playing with tones and creating a little bit of almost like a soft cut crease. I'm gonna go to my previous brush with no additional product, and for this I find it easiest to look down and blend back and forth. When you have less product on the brush, angle the brush up just a little bit. You can bring your eye line up and blend. So now we can see on my left eye versus my right eye, we're still keeping a very similar smoky effect through this straight line in the socket. But on the left side, we just have a little bit more depth that's giving us more contrast. And now it's also created the illusion where I've created this straight line at the very top of my socket. The eyelid looks bigger and brighter, whereas on this side, without that darkness, my eyelid still looks quite hooded. So it's all in creating this optical illusion, which is going to give us more real estate to play with to really make that poppy light contrast shine through. A shimmer eyeshadow from Sydney Grace called Buttermilk, and I'm going to apply this with a flat brush. This is the Hourglass number 3 all over shadow brush, where I've created the flat line and the 2 angled lines. I want to stay within that shape and apply this pale yellow shade. If your shape gets a little messy, it's okay. We've still got some of that darker shadow in the bristles of that smaller blending brush we've used. So we can use that to go along that upper edge and reinstate the depth. Having that contrast between here and the lid, it just makes everything look bigger and brighter, which really plays along with the bright spring look. Now I'm going to use a large fluffy brush. This is the BK Beauty number A503, and I want to use a peach beige eyeshadow. This is a shimmer eyeshadow called Dream Maker from Sydney Grace, and I'm going to use this right under the brow. So going right over that first mid-tone shade we applied, I'm going to use this to add some contrast above, and then I can even go right here on the side of that triangle we created to once again add contrast. And here on the inner corner of the eye, something else I enjoy doing is that low point we applied here under the eye, take a little bit of that light highlight shade and go right under. So we haven't done a ton to the lower lash line other than applying that little bit of that mid-tone color here in that lower socket, a little bit of brightness under, and we're going to create a nice rounded smoky effect that pulls into this upper shape. Now I want to create more of a smoky base to further add contrast. I'm going to use a Sephora Collection colorful eyeliner in the shade Tiramisu, and I'm going to use this to tightline my upper lash line. I'm going to take a little bit more of that pale yellow buttermilk shade with the flat brush, and I'm going to go right over the lash line, and that way any of the liner that might have transferred to the lid will be covered. And we're also adding the second layer of brightness, which will further help to create contrast within the look. I'm going to go back to that large fluffy brush and use this to blend on the edges. So when we're blending the edges, remember we want to blend this upper edge back and forth in a straight line, and then on the inner corner we want to angle our brush as well as on the outer corner to keep that triangular shape. Now, moving down to the lower lash line, I'm going to take a smaller brush. This is the BK Beauty 502. I'm going to apply some of the buttermilk shade right under my eye. I'm going to go back to that smaller brush, and I'm going to take the very first shade, Mocha, and apply that under. And then use the BK Beauty 503, the large blender, to blend back and forth. The eyes are going to look a little stark right now. We will add mascara, which will further soften it down. Before we do anything to the cheeks, let's create our lip color. Now, to keep with the overall effect that Emma Stone has in the look, I want to keep it with the smoky eye and the bright pop of color on the lips, but where we took an Eastern Beauty take on the eye with the inverted triangle placement, let's create something else that's popular within Eastern Beauty and do an ombre statement lip. So I'm going to start by using a ColourPop eyeliner. This is the ColourPop BFF Creme Gel Liner in the shade Joyride. And with this one, I want to inspect my lips. So for most people, you will notice there is a difference in tone between the inner color and the outer color of the lip. So I want to stretch my lip and apply this pencil on the darker inner rim of the lip. Now I want to take a lip pencil that is a similar tone but lighter. For this, I'm going to use the Pat McGrath Permagel of Ultra Lip Pencil in the shade Bare Rose. And with this color, I want to go from the outer perimeter of the lip to meet that darker shade we applied in the middle. You want to keep them distinct so that way when we apply our pop of color on top, it's going to give that really beautiful gradation of color. Peri Para, this is the Ink Airy Velvet in number 14, Rosy Pink. Alright, so now the lip's on. The lip is a little bit cooler than I would typically go for a bright spring, just because this is going to feel more of like a bright winter color. However, hang on, because we are going to warm this up eventually, but this is part of creating that overall gradiated lip look. We are going to move on to cheeks. So I want to start by adding some more dimension and contrast to the cheeks. The eye is neutral, the lip is going to be our base color. So let's add some complementary color on the cheek. NYX Sweet Cheek Matte Blush in the shade Daydream. And I'm going to be using a BK Beauty number 107. For this blush color, I want to keep it fairly far back on the cheek. If you think about where you would apply your contour, I want to go slightly above that. And then we can wrap up. And with this one, I'm going straight into the hairline. So remember, you're applying right where you would contour and going just above that. And then we're gonna blend it in circular motions, pulling back into the hairline. Then I like to use my powder brush to go through and further soften the blush. I wanna create more dimension and gradation for the cheek look. I'm gonna use the same brush I just wiped off on a microfiber towel, and I'm gonna use the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush in the shade 05 Pretty Peach. And this shade I wanna apply towards the front of my cheek. And I want to keep this in a similar space that I kept the previous shade. So when I go from about right where that point is, I create under the eye with that mid-tone shade. I'm going to place my brush there, and I'm going to work it back to meet that darker shade. And I'm going to keep it more in a straight line, not going past the lowest point of my nose. So we're keeping from here, pulling it back. We're gonna add a little bit more blush in just a moment, but this is creating our base. And adding these colors, especially if you have the overall bright spring coloring, other than the lip, everything should be feeling pretty natural, but the lip is gonna give that little extra pop. Now for a spring look, we need a little bright, we need a little bit of glow. So I'm gonna add a highlight. The highlight I'm gonna be using is from Sydney Grace. This is called Down the Aisle. I'm gonna apply this with my blush brush, and I'm gonna go right over top of where I applied the blusher in the middle, and I'm overlapping the blush. So I'm creating a secondary inverted triangle. This time it's a little bit more of an angle. So I'm just going from the pupil of the eye down, go from the hairline down, and fill in the middle. Now I'm gonna use the secondary shade of the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush. This is shade 07 Cool Coral, and I'm gonna apply this right in the middle. So this is going to bridge the previous two blush shades together and also move the highlight to the background. This is going to further help connect the warmer browns that we use in the socket line with the more pinky color on the lip. Everything is just harmonizing, and we're creating a color palette that gradiates from dark to light with various shades of brightness and different levels of saturation. So now to really pull in some of the influences from the surrounding palettes, because that's something I love doing. I love borrowing from the neighboring palettes. So in this case, we have borrowed our lip color from the Bright Winter palette, and our bronzer that we previously used would be a great example of a color that works better for the warm, true spring season. So I'm gonna take a little bit more of that bronzer, and I want to use this just to further enhance the socket and the outer leg of the triangle. You can see that adds that nice smoky warmth. This will also help connect our eye look to the bronzer we applied on the rest of the face because we're keeping with similar colors. I'm gonna take my blush brush, no additional product, and I'm gonna now just blend over that bronzer shade. Not to erase it, but to marry it and almost like a color flow effect from eyes to cheeks. Now, you know I'm a big fan of borrowing from your sister palette. So the sister palette for Bright Spring is going to be Deep Dark Autumn. So here's the one option for the end look for our Bright Spring. Now, like I've done with my other videos, if you were someone who is new to creating this look, if you're new to the palette, this might feel too much, especially with the lip. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to borrow from your sister palette and create a look that's gonna be a little bit softer and more approachable for someone who is new to wearing colors from the color palette. So I've removed the lip color, and now I'm gonna use a lipstick from the brand called I'm Meme, and this is an Atelier drawing lipstick in the shade 07 Cozy. I'm Meme is a K-beauty brand, so this is going to have a little bit more of a sheer velvet finish. The way I like to apply these, I like to press in the center of my lip and then kind of flick downwards to create a little bit of a gradient. And then I'm going to apply a warm, shimmery gloss. And this is a mini of the Buxom Lip Polish in the shade Celeste. And last but not least, mascara. One of the ideal color for mascara is going to be you can use a black, but you could also get away with using a black brown. I'm gonna use a black brown. This is the L'Oreal Lash Paradise in black brown. So I'm gonna apply a very generous coat to my upper lashes, and I'll be right back. Wow, lashes really pulled that look together. And I might not be a bright, clear spring, but wow, I love this look. It's just springtime and a look. You've got that bright lip color, you've got a nice flush of color that ties our lips and cheeks together, and we fade it into the eyes quite nicely. If you'd like to see a look that's a little bit more natural, check out the video I did last year. That's gonna be a lot more of a subtle everyday look for this bright spring color palette, but I think this is really fun, and we got to borrow from our sister palette as well as our neighboring palette. So let me know what you think of this look in the comment section down below. I had so much fun creating this look, and if you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more seasonal color analysis videos. The next one we're gonna be doing is going to be our warm true spring color palette video, so stay tuned. We got a little bit of a preview with that crease color slash bronzer we used today. So if you want to see how to create a warm true spring look, stay tuned for the next video, and I will see you all there. Bye y'all.